All right, just like our other review videos, I'm going to start by just giving you a chance to check some answers, and then we're going to talk about go over the questions. The things that I have highlighted in yellow are very, very important, and if you don't need to watch anything else, I highly recommend that you watch the explanations for those questions. They are 5 and 6, and then 20 through 22 at the end. All right, so let's check our answers real quick. Here is 1. Let's do 1 and 3, 2 and 4. There's 5 and 6, 7 through 9, 10 through 12, 13 through 15, 16 and 17, 18 and 19. Also notice that your notation for 18 and 19 should probably be better the way you have your answer written than what they have written. And then 20 through 22 here at the end. All right, so if we're going to talk about these, let's just start right here at question 1. Remember that there is a difference between and or. Or means that you want just one, and means that you need both. Also remember there are 2 important rules for inequalities. The x has to end, or the variable, whichever it is, has to end on the left side, and if you divide by a negative number, the symbol is going to flip around. So on question 1 here, we would add 7, so I'm going to solve this one kind of down here. I'm going to add 7 to both sides. That gives me negative 4x is greater than or equal to 36. And then when I divide by negative 4, because that's a negative number, my symbol is going to flip around. So I'm going to have x is less than or equal to negative 9. That, on the graph, becomes a closed circle and shaded to the left. Because it's or, I can go ahead and put my answer directly on the graph. All right, the second equation, I'm going to subtract 3 from both sides. So that's negative 3x is less than 6. Divide by negative 3, and when I divide, my symbol is going to turn around, so that's x is greater than negative 2. That gives me an open circle because it's a strict inequality. There's no equal to, and then greater than means I shade to the right. Again, because this is an or question, or means at least one, I'm allowed to just put the answer directly on the graph. You may have graphed it above, in which case you would have done true, false, true, but you still should have gotten the same final answer on your graph here. All right, question 2. So let's solve these out separately. So my first one, I'm going to add 10 to both sides because that's a negative 10. So 10x squared is less than or equal to negative 100. Divide by 10. I'm not dividing by a negative number here, so my symbol is not going to turn around. X is less than or equal to negative 10. Again, this is an or problem, so I can put my answer directly on the graph. Closed circle and to the left. My other example, I'm going to subtract 6 from both sides, so 10x is greater than or equal to 60. Divide by 10. X is greater than or equal to 6. Closed circle and to the right. If you graph both of these above and do true, false, which is a good practice, you'll have true, false, true, in which case you should have the same final answer copied on your final graph. Make sure that when you're graphing, you do actually have something on this final graph. Don't just give me 2 things above and not put anything on the final graph unless you're intending to say no solution. Question 3. All right, so my first one, I'm going to subtract 1 from both sides. That's 4x is less than 9. Oh, subtract is less than 8. So if I divide by 4, x is going to be less than 2. On my other side here, I'll do that in blue. I'm going to have x subtract 10 from both sides is greater than negative 7. This time it's and, so I can't just put what I want to on the final graph. So I'm going to do a little rough sketch for myself. Less than 2 is open and to the left. I'm doing this below the graph because it's and. Greater than or equal to negative 7 is closed and to the right. Remember, there are 3 sections here, right? Or 3 different sections. And means I need both of them to be true. So that's false, true, false. So the only part that's going to get copied on my final answer here is this middle section. And I'm just copying the same endpoints that they had for me before. All right, question 4. Subtract 4 from both sides. That gives me 8m is less than or equal to negative 64. Divide by 8, m is less than or equal to negative 8. This is OR, which means my graph can go directly on the final answer. All right, and then my second one, add 8 to both sides. Negative 8m is less than or equal to negative 16. I'm going to divide by negative 8, which means I've got to flip my symbol around. So m is going to be greater than or equal to 2 here. Again, this is OR, so I can put my answer, my final answer, directly on the graph. I'm not looking for any overlap. Question 5, this is one of the important ones. All right, I'm going to multiply both sides by 2 to get rid of the fraction. That's going to give me x is less than or equal to 0. All right, my second equation, I'm going to divide by negative 6. X is going to be greater than, I'm dividing by a negative, so my symbol needs to turn around, less than or equal to. And negative 12 divided by negative 6 gives me positive 2. Now this is and, so I can't put my answer directly on the graph yet. So I'm going to do a rough little sketch. Closed and less than 0. Closed and less than 2. And now there are always 3 sections. And means I need both of them. So notice this far side on the right has nothing, so it's going to be false and remain empty. This middle section only has one thing, which is still false. I need both of them to be true. So that means the only part where both of them is true is this front section on the left. So that's going to be closed and everything to the left of 0. All right, that's where that final answer is coming from. Let's look at 6, another one of the important ones. Remember, if it's all written together, we've got to break it apart. So I've got negative 4 is less than or equal to n minus 4. Add 4 to both sides. And then one of our rules is that our variable has to end on the left side, so n is greater than or equal to 0. If there is no word, it's an and problem, which means I have to wait to graph until the very end. So now I'm going to copy my other side. N minus 4 is less than negative 9. Add 4 to both sides. N is less than negative 5. All right, so now I'm ready to do my quick little sketch. I've got solid or closed on the 0 and to the right, open on negative 5 and to the left. Now, there are still 3 sections here, but remember, and means I'm looking for both. I'm looking for an overlap, and there is no overlap here. So that's where I'm getting no solution from, because there's no overlap. And I'm not going to put anything on my number line. I'm going to leave it completely empty because I can't put anything on there if it's no solution, not even closed or open circles. Okay, so let's look at the word problems down here. This is how it's going to be set up on your test, kind of broken apart just so that you can do one step at a time and make sure you follow all the instructions. So it says admissions fee is $9. Each ride costs $175. So each is a keyword there, which is why I knew to put the variable with the $175. And then it's each ride, which means X must stand for the number of rides. When you write a function, since it says function, we need to write f of x, so make sure that's the beginning of your equation. 8 says there are 12 total rides of the carnival. Provide an appropriate domain and range. So domain are your number of rides. So you could ride 0 rides, right? It's possible you could go to the carnival and just hang out with your friends and not ride anything. Or you could ride 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 all the way up to 12. So this ... that's me being lazy. I don't think that you have any that go all the way up to 12 tomorrow, so you should be able to write out all the numbers they give you. And then range is the cost. So if you went on 0 rides, it would be $9, and if you went on 1 ride, you would pay $10.75, and 2 rides would be $12.50. So if we count all the way up, I think for 12 rides, we should be getting $30. Okay, and then what do the domain and range represent? Well, we kind of already talked about that, but the domain are x values, which in this case, we already said, stands for the number of rides. Range are the y values, which is what we would get out of this function, and that is the total cost. All right, so 10 through 12, kind of similar in the way it's set up here. A plumber charges $50 per hour plus $30 for the call. So that's, remember, function notation f of x. Per hour, per is my rate word, so I did 50x. Hour comes right after the rate word, so I knew that X stands for the number of hours. What does he charge for 3 hours? So this one is actually asking me to solve, so I'm going to do f of 3. I'm plugging that in. I get f of 3 equals 180, and that's good because it says write your answer in function notation, which is this what the answer that is circled right here. Write a sentence to provide context for your answer. That's pretty straightforward. You're just explaining that for 3 hours, that's what the 3 means, he charges $180. All right, 13 through 15. I think some of you asked this in class. This question is assuming that this is only occurring for 1 week. I'll make sure that that is clear for your test tomorrow, so you don't have to worry about multiple rate words. So the only rate word we're concerned about is this per bag. So I'm going to do 4x plus 10, and then per is my rate word, so bags, that must be what the variable stands for. X stands for the number of garbage bags. They're asking for me to solve for 14 garbage bags. What will they be charged? So I'm going to just do f of 14 and work that out. And then write a sentence to provide context for your answer for 14 bags of garbage. And look at that, I didn't even finish my sentence. The company will pay or be charged. Let's see, the company will pay $66. All right, let's keep going. 16 and 17 down here at the bottom. This is exactly what the notation I think is going to look like on your test tomorrow, I'm pretty sure. So you just have to know what this notation is telling you to do, and that is to plug 6 in for x. So if I work that out, that's 3 times 6 squared minus 3. Remember, we have to do the exponent first, so that's 3 times 36 minus 3. And then if we work that out, that's going to be 108. So, right, you can just do this little math off to the side for yourself and get 108, right? 18, 3 times 3 is 9, plus 1 is 10. Just making sure you know how to do that. And then minus 3, that's where they're getting the 105. The better way to write your answer is going to be k of 6 equals 105. That's the best way to write that answer. On this second one, so we're going to do g of 10 is going to equal negative 3 times 10 minus 1. Got to multiply first. That's negative 30. Minus 1 is negative 31. So g of 10 equals negative 31. All right, 18 and 19 up here at the top. Very similar. 18, pretty straightforward here. H of negative 6, we're plugging negative 6 in, so that's 3 times negative 6 plus 2. So negative 18 plus 2 is negative 16, so we should write our answer, H of negative 6 equals negative 16. And then last one, I'm going to plug negative 8 in. Remember that there are 2 spaces for in here, so we have to plug negative 8 in for both of them. So I've got g, let's see, negative 8 squared plus 2 times negative 8. That's going to give me 64. And then I actually am going to go ahead and do this multiplication. That's minus 16. 64 minus 16 is going to give me 48. So my answer is g of negative 8 equals 48. All right, so let's look at these questions at the bottom. So the first part of these questions says, determine if each function is discrete or continuous. This is very important for you for tomorrow. Discrete means that they're going to give you a domain, all right, like they've done here, and that your final points should be unconnected, all right, disconnected. That's how you can think about that. Discrete is disconnected. Also, if we're talking about word problems, remember that discrete are things that you can count in whole numbers. I'll remind you of that tomorrow before your test. And then continuous is going to be somewhere where they don't necessarily give you a domain. For instance, 22, if they don't give us a domain, we have to know the domain is all real numbers, so it's continuous. So these graphs are going to be connected. So notice discrete is disconnected, and continuous is connected. When they give you continuous, that's when you're going to have to pick 3 numbers for yourself. Okay, so let's look at 20, 21, and 22. So on 20 here, they give me this domain, and remember domain are our x values, so what we're going to do is we're going to have to plug in these x values. So we're going to find f of negative 2, which is going to be 3 times negative 2 minus 2. When we work that out, we're going to get, let's see, I'll work this one all the way out with this. Negative 6 minus 2 is negative 8. So that's the ordered pair. Negative 2, because that's an x value. Negative 8, because that was the output of our function. So I graphed that point, negative 2, negative 8. All right, if we work that out again, so this time they're telling us to do the same thing, but use the next domain, which is 1. So that's 3 times 1 minus 2. 3 minus 2 is 1. So now my ordered pair is 1 from the x value and 1 from what I just worked out. So that's 1, 1. When you work out this last ordered pair for f of 4, you should kind of do all that work, and I think you're going to get 10 there. So the ordered pair you're going to be graphing is 4, 10. All right, make sure you know how to do that. Question 21. So same idea. There's a problem on question 21, and the issue is that y is not by itself. So I've got to fix that first. So I'm going to recopy y plus 2x equals 12. I've got to get the y by itself, so I'm going to subtract 2x, move that term to the other side. So that's going to give me y equals, you can do 12 minus 2x if you want, or negative 2x plus 12, I don't care. If you're worried about signs, you can leave it in this order. That's not a big deal. F of x is the same as this y. So this is the same as me doing f of x equals 12 minus 2x. All right, so now we're just using exactly the same way. We're just going to use the same method. We're going to use these domain values that they give us. So our first domain value is 2. So I'm going to do f of 2 equals 12 minus 2 times 2. So that's 12 minus 4, which is 8. So my first ordered pair is 2, 8. So I'm plotting that point, 2, 8. All right, similar process for these other 2 points. When you plug 3 in, it looks like you should get 6 right here. When you plug 4 in, it looks like you should get 4. Again, because they give me the domain, this is discrete, so I'm going to leave them disconnected. You can kind of think about that as if they give you the domain, then you're going to keep it discrete, which means it's going to be disconnected. I don't know if thinking about all those D's together will help you keep that straight. Last question, 22. This one does not give me a domain. And on your test, I may say that the domain is all real numbers, but it's not a specified domain, which means this is going to be a continuous problem, so I have to pick 3 numbers. Notice that also this is not solved for y, so we need to do that first. So 2x minus 3y equals 9. I'm trying to get y by itself. All right, so I got to subtract 2x from both sides. It's going to give me negative 3y equals 9 minus 2x. And we did this a few different ways. Divide by negative 3. Some of you just like to keep that all as division by negative 3. So I'm going to give you 2 options. You could either end with y equals negative 3 plus 2/3 x. Or you can keep that fraction all together, just if you're worried about making mistakes, and say 9 minus 2x divided by negative 3. I don't care what you do. All right, I'm going to keep it all the same just in case, so I don't have to worry about making mistakes. So I'm going to pick numbers. Remember, we said in class that you want to pick numbers that are divisible by this number on the bottom because it's a fraction. So I need to pick numbers divisible by 3. So I'm going to pick, let's see, I'll do negative 3 and 0 and 6. Okay, so if I work those out, negative 3, 0, and 6. So the first one, negative 3, is going to be f of negative 3 equals 9 minus 2 times negative 3 over negative 3. That is 9 plus 6 over negative 3, which is 15 divided by negative 3, which is negative 5. So my first ordered pair is going to be negative 3, negative 5. And if I plot that, I get this point right here. Okay, let's kind of do that again. This time I'm going to do 0. f of 0 equals 9 minus 2 times 0, all divided by negative 3. That's 9 minus 0 over negative 3, which is just 9. That's just 9 divided by negative 3, which is negative 3. So this ordered pair is 0 from the x value, negative 3. That's going to give me this plot right here. All right, last one, because we need to pick 3 just to make sure we're doing it correctly. I'm going to do 6 this time, equals 9 minus 2 times 6 divided by negative 3. That's 9 minus 12 divided by negative 3, which is negative 3 divided by negative 3. And that is positive 1. So my ordered pair is 6, 1. That's this last point right here. Now notice I've given you some other points. If you picked negative 6, you would be getting negative 7. If you picked positive 3, you should be getting negative 1. It doesn't matter which points you pick, because remember, with continuous, you have to connect it. So your final answer, no matter which points we pick, all of you are going to get this same line if you do all your work correctly. All right, so just remember, continuous means you're going to connect it, and that's when you have a domain of all real numbers. Discrete is when they give you a domain and you leave it disconnected. If you need help with any of these skills, including the things that we did on IXL in class today, or determining if things are discrete or continuous in word problems, any of that, you need to come see me for tutoring tomorrow morning. Good luck studying.